colored umbrella. Today I'm going to be showing you how easy it is to make a tumbler. Now I'm going to be going super basic, so if you are brand new to tumblers, then this is the perfect video for you. Even if you've been making tumblers for a long time though, it's always great to get a little refresher. And who knows, maybe you'll learn some new techniques along the way. I'm gonna be going through all of the different types of tumblers that you can do and how to make them. I wanna try to make this as basic and simple as possible. Honestly, anybody can do this. These are so fun and easy to make. But if you have any questions at all that I did not answer, please leave a comment so that I can be sure to get back to you and answer any questions that you might have. But let's get started with the basics. What do you need to make tumblers? Obviously, you need a tumbler. If you're going to do epoxy, you need to make sure it's a stainless steel tumbler. I like doing the double insulated ones because it keeps your ice cold or your drink warm for a really long time, which is always a good thing. I like to keep my Diet Coke nice and cold. The next thing that you're going to be needing is a tumbler turner. Now I have a video where I go over all of my different types of turners that I have, what my favorites are, what I like and what I don't like, so you can be sure to go back and watch that. There's a lot of amazing, great tumbler turners that are out on the market right now. If you're just barely starting off though, I do have one that I recommend. I do have it on my storefront on Amazon, and it actually comes with everything that you need to start making tumblers. It has epoxy, glitter, gloves, stir sticks, everything. I think it even comes with a tumbler that you can practice on. Today though, for this video, I'm gonna be using my Dino's tumbler turner. I love this one because it actually moves, which is super nice. We're also gonna be needing, of course, some epoxy resin. My favorite is Counterculture Fast Set. I also love their medium viscosity and their artist resin and their thin viscosity. I just like all of their stuff. So to start off, I've got my tumbler here. It's all prepped. I've already spray painted it white, so it's all ready for glitter. So I'm just gonna put my foam in the cup and push that down into the cup and attach it to my tumbler turner. I am ready to get tumbler making. There's a few different methods for applying glitter to your tumbler. Today we're just going super basic. Personally, my favorite method for applying glitter is the epoxy method. I feel like it's the easiest out of all of them. I don't have to worry about wasting any glitter or accidentally having any bald spots on my tumbler. Also, I don't have to seal my glitter after. And if I have something that can help save me time and save me some steps, I'm all for it. So I'm gonna be showing you the epoxy method today. I've gone ahead and gathered all of the rest of my supplies that I need. I like to mix my epoxy in these little disposable medicine cups. You can also use silicone cups. I personally like these. I feel like it's just a lot easier to mix them. The silicone cups just aren't as sturdy, so I feel like it's harder to get the bottom corners. You're also gonna need something to stir your epoxy. I also made another video all about stir sticks. For this video, I'm going to be using this mini silicone stir stick. These are my favorite ones to use. You're going to want to make sure you have yourself some gloves. You get nitrile gloves so you can make sure you keep out all of the chemicals and don't get them on your hands. I also have my respirator mask, of course my epoxy. Today I'll be using ccdiy Fast Set, and of course the most important part, the glitter. For this tumbler, I'm going to be using Madame Glitter Dancer's Dust. I got this from Vinyl Fun. Just look how gorgeous that is. This is gonna be so pretty. I also always like to make sure that I have an apron on or something to protect my clothing. Epoxy is permanent. If you get it on your clothes at all, it's not coming off. Even if you clean it off immediately, you're still gonna have a spot there forever. So make sure you're not wearing any clothes that if they got ruined, you would be very disappointed. I also have videos all about masks, gloves, stir sticks, and everything with personal protection equipment, so you can go make sure you watch those because tumbler safety is something that is very important. So before you do any tumbler, make sure you go back and watch those. I have my mask and my gloves all ready to go. Now, when you're doing the epoxy method for a tumbler, you do not need that much epoxy, like just a little bit. You're gonna feel like you didn't mix enough, but I promise you did. Another reason I like using these medicine cups is because they actually have the measurements on the side, so it's so much easier to measure. You don't have to use the two different cups you can just mix everything in one cup, which is always really nice. So this cup right here is a 30-ounce skinny tumbler. So for this tumbler, I am going to mix 5 milliliters. So let's make our tumbler. So I'm gonna start with my part A. And I'm going to do 2.5 milliliters. Now again, you're gonna feel like you're barely doing any. My part A is a lot thicker, so I always like to start with that one. And I'm just gonna wait until it levels out. Now I'm gonna go in and do 2.5 milliliters of my part B. And now it's time to mix. When you're doing the epoxy method, normally you want to mix your epoxy slowly so you don't get any bubbles. The nice thing with the epoxy method is that doesn't matter. You don't worry about bubbles with this because it's all getting covered with glitter anyway. So you can stir this as quickly as you'd like. And make sure you check the instructions on your epoxy to make sure that you stir it long enough. There are some fast sets or regular epoxies that do need to be mixed for several minutes. With Counterculture's fast set, what I do is I mix it and then I lift it up and let it run down, and when it runs clear and it's not like foggy anymore, that's how I know that it's mixed. If it's not mixed, it's going to be foggy and it's not crystal clear. It does have lots of bubbles in it, and that's okay because again, this is getting covered up with glitter anyway. I'm just going to scrape off the excess back into my cup. And another necessity is to make sure you have some paper towels, as well as some rubbing alcohol or acetone. I like to use these little pump bottles. I got this one from the dollar store. I use that to clean off my stir stick. That way I don't have to worry about cleaning it off later. Now this part is completely up to you. You can either pull the tumbler off of the turner and apply your epoxy this way. Personally, I like to do it while it's on the turner. I just feel like I have more control. This is really simple. All you do is with your hand, I just like to take some epoxy and I put it on my glove. And I just kind of pour it on the cup. You are totally gonna feel like you don't have enough. But again, I promise you have enough. If you do too much epoxy, then what happens is your glitter actually soaks down into the epoxy. And then you're gonna have some spots that look wet. And then your colors are gonna be uneven, and it's just, you don't want that. So now that I've got my epoxy all on my cup, I'm just gonna take my glove, my hand right here, and I am just going to wipe up. That way I can spread that thin coat of epoxy. And while you do this, you'll see, oh, this was enough epoxy. And again, you don't have to worry about bubbles or anything like that because it's just going to get covered up with glitter anyway. And as you can see, I'm just taking my hand. I'm just pressing up. I'm just doing a little bit of pressure on my tumbler. And that's all that I'm doing. And I have epoxy on my glove. So that's all I'm using. Now this epoxy that I have on my glove, I'm just going to take it, I'm just going to kind of scrape it on the edge right there. And then use that for the bottom. And then I'm just going to go around the cup one more time just to make sure I got all of it covered. And again, just a super, super thin coat. All right, so now that I've got my cup covered in epoxy, I can go ahead and take off my gloves. All right, so I'm actually gonna let this spin for about 5 minutes and then I'll go in with my glitter. My tumbler's been turning for about 5 minutes. So now I'm gonna go ahead and go in with my glitter. Again, I'm using Madam Glitter Dancer's Dust. I got this from Vinyl Fun. And I do have that linked. Look how gorgeous that is. On this white base, it's gonna give it such a good shimmer. Now, I don't wanna waste any of this beautiful glitter. So I have a piece of cardstock paper that I'm gonna be putting underneath to catch all of my glitter. I like to start at the top, completely personal preference and what you're most comfortable with. And you just pour that glitter on there. And don't worry if you run out of glitter in your package, because you can always pour it back in and keep going. I like to dump a lot so I can make sure that I get my tumbler completely covered. And then I'm just gonna give my turner a tap to make sure I knock off any excess glitter. And I'm gonna go ahead and pour that back in and continue covering. To get the bottom of my tumbler, all that I like to do is I'll just take it and start pouring it at the top right here. As it spins around, it will cover the bottom of the tumbler. And I just keep doing that until I feel like I have enough coverage. Just let my cup spin around, and if I see any spots that might need a little bit more glitter, I can just kind of go over them. You really can't do too much glitter, because if there's a spot where it already has enough glitter, it just won't stick and the glitter will just fall off. As that spins, I'm just gonna give it a quick tap. Just to make sure I get all that glitter, any excess glitter off. I have my glitter all applied to my tumbler, so now I'm just gonna let this spin. Since I used a fast setting epoxy, I only need to let it spin for about 40 minutes, and then I can go ahead and put my next epoxy coat on there. If you're using a non-fast set epoxy, then you'll wanna let it spin for at least 2 to 4 hours before you apply your next epoxy coat. So I'm gonna let this spin for a little bit and then we'll be right back. All right, so my cup is done spinning and it's set enough to where I'm ready to do my next epoxy coat. This time I am going to be mixing more epoxy, so I'm actually going to be doing 15 milliliters. Now I do want to make sure I don't have any bubbles in my epoxy this time, so when I'm mixing, I am going to mix it slowly. Also, a key to this is not removing your stick from the epoxy while you're stirring, and just trying to go in that same motion. Also mixing until it is clear and not at all foggy like I did before. If you have any bubbles after you're done mixing, don't worry about it. It's gonna be okay. Most of those bubbles will come out when you apply it to your tumbler. And if they don't, then that's what the torch is for. So we will get all of those out. And oops, totally dropped my stick and made a little bit of a mess. But that's totally fine. I'll just scoop it back up, put it back in my cup, and pretend like that never happened. But if you do have that happen ever, just some rubbing alcohol or acetone on a paper towel will clean that right up. Just remember, crafting is messy. You're gonna make messes, and that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. You will want to clean that up though while it's still wet, because once it sets, then it is a lot harder to remove. Now I'm just gonna check and see if it's running clear, and And once I feel like it's at a good spot, then I'm ready to put it on my tumbler. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my tumbler turner. And just like before, I'm just gonna kind of scoop it out with my finger. You can also pour it out. I just like having control of how much epoxy comes out. For this initial layer, I'm not doing a super thick layer of epoxy. I am doing a thinner one. I just really want to make sure that that glitter gets coated and sealed well. Also, if I have some spots where I want to add some extra glitter, then I don't want to have too thick of a coat so that it sinks into that epoxy and has those wet spots I talked about before. And I'm going to apply that epoxy just like I did before, just by using my hand and running it across the cup. Applying medium pressure and just making sure that I get it evenly around the cup. Remember, epoxy is self-leveling, which is really nice. That's why you have it on a turner. So don't feel like it has to be perfectly even on the entire tumbler, because as it spins, it's going to level itself out to give you that nice, smooth, glossy finish. When I'm applying the epoxy to the bottom, I'm just going to be using the epoxy that I already have on my glove and just kind of scraping any excess epoxy on the edge and just kind of going around my tumbler one more time just to make sure I don't have any spots that I missed or any spots that have too much epoxy or too little epoxy. Once I have my epoxy how I want it, I'm just going to go over it with my torch. And I don't want to leave that heat on a certain spot. So I want to have that constantly moving. And I'm just going to go around that tumbler once. And this is going to pop any of those bubbles that are left over and bring any other bubbles to the surface. You do need to use a torch for this. A heat gun will not get those bubbles popped. So I like to use a kitchen torch. You can also use those big blowtorch things, but I don't trust myself with those. And I've been using this for a couple years and it's worked really great for me. So I'm just going to stick with my little butane torch for now. But keep in mind, if you do keep the heat on a spot for too long, you can burn your epoxy and that will cause fish eyes, which you do not want to get those. Now that that last coat is all cured, I'm ready to go in with just a regular thicker coat now. And again, I'm going to be stirring my epoxy slowly and making sure I don't go too quick so I don't get those bubbles. I'm going to be mixing a little bit more epoxy this time. So I actually have 25 milliliters. And if I end up mixing too much, that's totally fine. I can put the excess in a mold or use it for another cup if I need to. But since this is a larger cup, I do want to make sure that I do a little bit of a bigger batch. And once again, just making sure that I mix that until it is clear and not at all foggy. And make sure you check your epoxy that you're using to see what the recommended stirring time is, because every single epoxy is completely different. All right, I've got my epoxy mix. So I'm just gonna let it sit for a minute to get any of those bubbles out. And I'm gonna go over my tumbler with a light sanding. This is a 60 grit sanding block. This is fine glitter, so it's not really sticking up a lot. So I'm just gonna do a quick little sand on it. And once I'm done sanding it, then I'm gonna wanna make sure I get all of that debris and dust off. So I'm just going to take a paper towel and some rubbing alcohol and go over my tumbler so that I can make sure there's nothing on there that can cause any bumps or discoloration with my glitter or my epoxy. Once that's all cleaned up, I'm just gonna go ahead and get my little stick out of my epoxy and clean that off. I'm just gonna use the same paper towel and some rubbing alcohol. And I'm just gonna grab my turner out, and just like that last coat, I'm just going to get that epoxy and apply it to my tumbler. And I like to just kind of make sure I get some all around the cup evenly before I go around and really get in there to get those coats nice and good. And then I'm just going to go around the cup like I have done before with that medium pressure, and just make sure that epoxy is covering the entire tumbler and I don't have any spots that do not have that epoxy on there. And same with the bottom, just kind of using that epoxy that I already have on my glove, kind of scrape it off and just go around there. And then if you feel like you need more epoxy, then you can apply it. If you feel like you're good, then just let her spin. I am going to go in with just a little bit more epoxy because I do want this to be a little bit of a thicker coat, just so I can make sure I get that nice smooth finish. Because if you want to do a decal or anything on your tumbler, you do want to make sure that you have a smooth finish before applying those, or any vinyl. Because if you have any bumps, then that is going to show through on your vinyl or your decal. So after this coat, if you still feel like you don't have that perfect smooth finish, then you can for sure go in with another coat of epoxy to get that nice finish that you need. I did end up putting a little bit too much epoxy on this one though, so I'm actually just going over it and scraping off any spots where there's too much epoxy on there, and I'm just kind of scraping that back into my cup. Because if you have spots that have too much epoxy, as it sets and spins, you'll have certain spots that have a big old lump on it, and you don't want a lumpy tumbler. I'm going to go ahead and let my tumbler spin now for about 2 hours, and since I'm using a fast setting epoxy, and then I'll be able to either put on my decal or do an extra coat if needed.